Hi, everyone, and welcome to our next in a series of videos about the A Celebration of Color 2022 Judge Show. I'm Bob Vergerio, Vice President of Communications for Quilts Incorporated, and today I have with me the woman who made it all possible, the sponsor for all of the cash prizes for this year's A Celebration of Color, and that's Luana Rubin of eQuilter.com. So welcome, Luana.
Hey, Bob, it's great to see you again. Gosh, I miss seeing everybody and going to the shows and looking forward to getting together and looking at quilts in person again soon.
Well, hopefully all that will be coming again very, very soon. So thank you for taking a few minutes to talk to me today. So I guess the first question I kind of had for you is why did you want to get involved with this particular judge show?
Oh, yeah. Well, sometimes you guys, you give me a few options and I jump on the ones that really are close to my heart. And this one was like an immediate yes, because color is a lifelong passion. I've been working in design in the garment and textile industry over 40 years, and I know I'm getting to be old as dirt here. But color is not only a passion for me, but it's something that I want to share with people. I think when people start talking about color and looking at color and thinking about design, it wakes up a part of them. And I think these days we're all, well, most of us are pretty stressed with what's happened over the last few years. And color is a way to energize us and heal us and calm us. And I certainly see that in this year's winners. But, you know, obviously they're colorful. And I feel like they were very joyful. And I think that's what we need today, is to just fill our hearts and minds with joy. And then the gray clouds kind of dissipate and we can focus on that and fill up with that juicy creative energy from the color.
Now, this might be kind of an esoteric question, but talk to me a little bit about the relationship between, or what you feel the relationship is between color and artistry, and maybe not necessarily just in quilts, but in art in general.
Mm. Well, I think that a true artist uses color very intuitively. We use it, and I consider myself an artist also. We start off with an idea or a feeling or a message, and we just naturally gravitate to a color, and we're unconsciously wanting to express that emotion or that idea by choosing particular colors or combinations of colors. You know, we can choose analogous colors, maybe a blue, green, turquoise, to indicate something that's calming and soothing. Or we may choose complementary colors to really kind of catch our attention and make us sit up straight and think about things. Or maybe hot, bright colors like orange and hot pink and, you know, kind of a warm plum purple. Those are some of my favorite, and orange, some of my favorite color combinations these days that are just really activating and energizing and warming.
Now, you work in a little bit above the average pay grade in this area, in that you've been a color forecaster and color trend forecaster for a long, long time, worked with different groups and organizations. So looking in that, I guess, crystal ball of yours, tell me a bit about what you think the color trends are going to be coming up.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we've had some world events that maybe have shifted that a little bit. And so I'm going to start talking about, because of the war in Ukraine, we have seen a huge surge of interest in blue and yellow. Now, blue is always a perennial bestseller. Like in my very first job designing silk dresses, my boss told me, always include blue. You know, blue always outsells all the other colors. And as a retailer and a designer, you know, I have to think about what sells, right? Blue always outsells all the other colors. You may not like that, but it's true. Like if you design a collection of fish fabrics and you don't have a blue option, if you only have like a pink ocean and a gray ocean, it's going to bomb. That's just reality. But blue has always been popular, but now we add to that yellow. Now, yellow has been gaining in popularity for several years now. It started out with kind of a warm honey gold, and also along with that in our industry, the theme of honeybees and people who are really concerned about conservation and pollinators. That was driving that trend in our industry, but it was a trend in the fashion industry and the home dec industry as well. But now that yellow has brightened up to kind of a sunflower yellow, and it's the colors of the Ukraine flag. And we find that so many people are making quilts to comfort and support Ukrainian refugees now. So that's something that I see as being very strong and bold. And beyond that, a couple other colors that I will mention is, there just seems to be an unending upwards trend of colors related to Frida Kahlo and kind of those hot, bright Mexican colors. And I think that there's more of an interest in those colors, not only because of interest in Frida Kahlo and her exhibit that has been traveling for several years with her clothes and so on, but also there have been films about Mexican culture and about Day of the Dead and things like that. So the colors that I also want to point out are that hot, bright, I call it a Mexican pink. It's kind of a
I know
hibiscus
we're
pink.
living here in Texas. I know exactly the shade you're talking about.
And then there's a green. It's not exactly lime green. I call it sprout green. It's kind of an organic, a little bit earthier version of lime green. But again, you see that in those color palettes with that hot pink. So those are two colors that I really love. Of course, there are folks who really like the neutrals and so on, and that's just kind of a perennial. Those colors are always there that you can mix up those hot, bright, deep colors with neutrals and get kind of a balanced overview. But I like to focus on, what are the bright colors? What are the saturated colors that are driving trends? So those are the four colors that I would point out right now.
You and I were talking a little bit before we started recording, and you mentioned that a lot of people are starting to ask you to talk about social issues with quilting and activism with quilting. And there are, two lines of thought on that. Some people think quilting should be involved with that and address that, and others do not. So tell me a little bit about how you feel about it and why you think it's important.
Well, I think a lot of people really try to avoid anything that's considered political, but even today, there's a gray line there. Sometimes something that one person thinks is a moral issue, another person thinks is political. So we all have to find that line ourselves. But I think some of the things that we can agree on are important to talk about are issues about the environment and endangered species and children, right? I mean, I think we can all agree on those issues, that those are important. And so, for instance, I just got back from Washington, D.C. yesterday, and I met with somebody from the Ocean Conservancy. And this is kind of a funny story. I met with this young staffer from the Ocean Conservancy, and we started talking, and she said, "Oh, my sister's a quilter." Well, okay, that's not too unusual because there are a lot of quilters out there. And then we talked a little bit more, and she mentioned that she makes wildlife quilts. And I showed her a quilt that I had made. And finally, it turns out that it's a really famous quilter is her sister, who lives in Africa. And then recently, another friend of mine, an Australian, had just made a portrait for this quilter in Africa. So, to meet this younger sister of this famous quilter was just mind-blowing, But anyway, so we talked about Ocean Conservancy, and this is one of the nonprofit partners that we send money to. I think, Bob, that we've raised now over $1.9 million. We give 2% of sales, not profits, but sales, to a list of 7 charities. And then there are other charities in addition, and also to the arts, to nonprofit arts. So the next day I met with Lita Huta, who's the executive director of the Endangered Species Coalition. It's kind of an umbrella organization for many organizations working on the issue of endangered species. And she wants me to get involved with the committee and wants me to start speaking to people about the intersection between activist art. I am answering your question a very long way around. Wants me to speak to, just regular citizens, not quilters, about this intersection between art and activism. And actually, I was supposed to come and speak at the World Wilderness Congress in Jaipur, India on this topic in March of 2020, but it was canceled due to the pandemic, of course. So more organizations, not just in the arts, not just in quilting, but even out there in these nonprofit conservation organizations are asking to hear about this idea of being an activist artist, being an activist curator. And often in our partnership with your organization, Bob, we are activist sponsor.
All right, Luana, well, I guess the last question I have is tell me a little bit about what eQuilter.com has got planned for the next year or so.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of things that are unknown at this point, right? We're all just
I
kind of
know,
making up-
trust me.
we're just making up what we wish we could do. But I will say that I hope I personally hope to spend more time with my art and my design, and also our charity program includes collecting and distributing quilts to those who've been affected by disaster and weather related events and so on. So we'll continue that. Recently, we have asked our fans and customers and quilt guilds that we know to send quilts to Uvalde, Texas, to the community that was so devastated there. And last time I checked with her, she had received almost 2,000 quilts. We sent some, and then most people have been sending them directly. And prior to that, we were working with Mission of Love, one of our other nonprofit partners, to send food and medical supplies and even firefighting equipment and over 1,000 quilts to refugees in Poland who've have to leave their whole life and their homes in Ukraine, which is just hard for all of us to comprehend. But that's something that I feel very deeply about, that we cannot look away. We cannot forget these people who've had their whole life uprooted. So, we'll continue with our charity program. We do have our own exclusive line of digital fabric, so we'll continue with that. But also just to continue to support the industry and to work with Quilts Inc., to work with you guys to sponsor beautiful exhibits. The color exhibit is just one of my favorites, and I thank all of the quilters who entered, and I congratulate the winners, and thanks to all of you at Quilts Inc. for giving me the opportunity to sponsor this beautiful exhibit.
Well, it's a wonderful exhibit, and everybody just loved it at our Salt Lake City Festival, and I'm sure everybody's going to love it at Long Beach next week as well. So, Luana, thank you for taking out some time to talk with us, and